Alright, in this video I'm going to show you the basics of just some shape creating tools. We're going to use, to start with, the rectangle tool as well as the ellipse tool. We'll do a polygon tool and maybe the star tool as well. So let's just start with the rectangle tool. So what this functions is just basically a way to draw a rectangle. So we can just click and drag and it'll allow us to shift our mouse around and create some type of rectangle. And as soon as you do that, you'll notice that the transform palette comes up and it gives you a couple of things. First here it shows the width and the height and basically the dimensions of this rectangle. It also gives you the coordinates of where it is on the document. So you'll notice that this corner here would signify the corner here of your artboard. So if I hit 0, 0, and if this little icon is lit up there, you'll notice that it sets up our origin here. So we can kind of use that if you wanted to position it at a particular place on the artboard. If we wanted to make a square that was, or a square, so a rectangle that's perfectly same on both sides, we can click and drag but then hold the shift key down, and that will constrain our proportions and make that a perfect square. So that's one of the options there. I can also just double click here in the document and it will give me the option if I wanted to make a particular dimension. So you can enter the height and the width, so that makes a perfect 2-inch square. So there's some options there in terms of making those shapes. Same thing happens here when it comes to ellipses. So we can click and drag. You can see how those work, making again a width and a height. Again, holding down shift will make a perfect circle. So we can alter those sizes here if we need to, as well as the same idea, double clicking, we can make a particular size if we actually need to type that in. So you've got the option of making these shapes in all sorts of different ways, which are pretty basic. One other way to resize, we'll talk about this in another video here, but I'll just show you real quick, that we can change the size just by grabbing the bounding box and resizing and moving. And I find myself using that a lot more often than actually using the Pathfinder, or excuse me, the transform palette. Sometimes we may use it, the transform palette, if we want something very specific in terms of size, or resizing a complete design. We can use that transform as well, and I'll show you that later in another video. But those are the basic tools in terms of making shapes. We can also do this with polygons, and typically with a polygon I double click because I want to define a particular number of sides. So probably the most common that I would use is actually a triangle, so making a 3 will make a perfect triangle relatively quickly. So that's a good way to make a polygon if you know that you have a particular shape you want to make. Same thing happens here with a star. We can click and it'll give you the number of points that you want. So you can see that that makes that. Another trick with the star tool, if you hold down the option key or the alt key, it will make a kind of a perfect star. Notice how those dimensions are straight. I also hold shift down and that will kind of make everything kind of straight. So that's a way to kind of quickly get that type of star. Otherwise you'd have to kind of mess with the radius, the inner and outer radius. You can kind of see how if we change this to, you know, like 26.5, it will make, you know, a different type of star. So you can kind of mess with those things if you want, but it's kind of a back and forth of testing the, you know, how those radiuses work. But this is the most common star that I seem to make. But again, those are some ways to make that a quick star. Those are the basic tools. I find myself using those the very most. Basically we're going to be using those basic shapes, the circle, square, rectangle, oval, and triangle, to kind of make make up the little bits and pieces, the parts of larger objects that will then kind of form together. But those are the basic shape making tools.